Lots to look forward to then. Conservative rebels, though, perhaps not looking forward to today. Maybe the Prime Minister as well. A vote of confidence in Mr Johnson's leadership could be announced as early as today. So far, Sky News has counted 28 Tory MPs who've publicly called for the Prime Minister to go. But many more are privately questioning his position. The chairman of the Backbench 1922 committee, that's Sir Graham Brady, is expected to count the number of letters formally demanding a leadership vote when he returns to Parliament this morning. This is the formal process. Here we go. To trigger a leadership vote, 15% of Conservative MPs, that's 54, have to submit no confidence letters. If that vote takes place, the magic number is 180. It would take a simple majority of Conservative MPs to remove the Prime Minister from office. There would then be a leadership contest to choose a new Conservative leader. Tamara is at Downing Street for us this morning. Hello to you, Tamara. Only one person knows, as we always say, but the mood music is definitely increasing.
Morning, Kay. Yes, the rebels are increasingly confident, I'd put it that way, that they have met the threshold of 54 letters. That is what is needed to be sent in to call for a leadership challenge. And if they have met that threshold, we could be hearing about it as soon as the next couple of hours. We know that over the last 10 days or so, since MPs went away for their recess after the Sue Gray report, there has been pressure building. MPs in their constituencies hearing discontent on the doorsteps over Partygate, mixed with other concerns, but the loss of trust over Partygate has been a very big factor here, and have been publicly or privately putting in their letters of no confidence in the Prime Minister. In Downing Street behind me, they are braced for this happening. A Downing Street source tells me that if it happens today and they are braced for that outcome, then the indications are they will want this leadership vote to be done pretty quickly, probably in the next 24 to 48 hours. They are going to fight it every step of the way. They say that Boris Johnson is going to tell MPs that he is a winner, that he has got the plan they need to take the country forward. And in fact, his Chief of Staff, Steve Barclay, who we had on the programme last week, has just published an article online saying that, aimed at Conservative MPs, saying we've lost half of this Parliament to COVID. It will be our fault entirely if we choose to waste the remaining half on distractions over the leadership. But certainly over the weekend, there was a briefing document circulating among Conservative rebels talking about Boris Johnson's unpopularity and the fact that he was booed at the Jubilee at the St Paul's service over the weekend. That certainly chimes with what some Conservative rebels have told me, that at Jubilee street parties, people were coming up to them saying it's time to change Prime Minister. So if it happens, moment of serious jeopardy for the Prime Minister. But of course, if there is a vote and he wins, then he is safe from challenge, in theory, for another year.
I mean, it was pretty staggering seeing, I mean, he did have some cheers, but there were very loud boos as well at St Paul's on Friday when he was there with his wife, Carrie Johnson. But he's being referred to also, I believe, Tamara, as the Conservative Corbyn. What does that mean?
Yes, in this briefing document apparently circulating amongst Conservative rebels, they say that what that you saw at the Jubilee is nothing that you couldn't read in the polls, that Boris Johnson's popularity is really very low. A lot of Conservative MPs say that the polls suggest they will lose the next election. Now, of course, the next election is expected to be 2 years away, so these things do change, but they are very concerned that with him at the helm, they may be on course for defeat, and some of them clearly want to change Prime Minister. Whether they have the numbers to defeat him, of course, you only need 54 for a challenge, but once you have a vote, you need a majority of Conservative MPs. That will be 180 to vote against the Prime Minister. That is a much higher bar, and at the moment, the Prime Minister and his allies are feeling very bullish about that vote. The cautionary tale, though, Kay, is if this goes ahead, that when Prime Ministers win votes of confidence, see Theresa May, Margaret Thatcher, John Major, they can be very wounded and they don't tend to carry on in office for that long afterwards. But at the moment, the mood here is very much much that they are going to fight this, that the Prime Minister will say he has a plan for the economy, he's got a speech this week on housing, he's got a plan for the health service, and that they will be very much putting Conservative MPs saying this is not the time to have a change of leader.
OK, thank you. Thanks a lot. Chat to you throughout the day. Health Secretary Sajid Javid joining us now from Kingston Hospital in south-west London. Saw you on the steps of St Paul's on Friday. What are your reflections on the Platinum Jubilee?
I thought it was absolutely fantastic, and especially yesterday, the Queen on the balcony and having all those people out there to welcome her. She should have rightly felt, very proud about that moment, and I think that just in the way the whole country feels proud about our Queen and how she served us in such an amazing way for 70 years.
How did you feel about the Prime Minister being booed?
Well, look, I saw the clips of that afterwards. There were boos, there were cheers, but look, no politician is universally loved. It won't be the first time a politician is booed, and there'll be much of that for many politicians down the line. I think that people are perfectly entitled to their views, but what's more important is to have a Prime Minister that's getting on with the job, that's delivering for the country, and that's exactly what we have.
54 letters needed to trigger a confidence vote in him. Are you expecting that threshold to be reached?
Look, I don't know. That's the honest answer. No one knows at this point, apart from Sir Graham Brady, my colleague, who is the chair of what's called the 1922 committee. We know that a number of colleagues are already gone public with asking for such a vote. That's a decision, of course, for them. If 54 letters are reached, I'm sure a vote will be called. I do think it's possible, but I don't know.
I was reading in The Guardian this morning a senior MP saying about the mood of the constituents, because, of course, a lot of MPs have been out and about in their constituencies given the 4-day bank holiday weekend for the Platinum Jubilee, saying, I'm getting people coming up to me and greeting me with that smile and that tilt of the head that's usually reserved when your Labrador puppy has just been run over. Goodness.
Look, I think this country doesn't need a vote of confidence in the Prime Minister. I think what we need to be doing as a country is certainly looking ahead to the challenges that exist. I'm here today at Kingston Hospital, standing behind this brand new scanner, by the way. That
I want to talk to you about that in just a second, but I just want to deal with Partygate, and then I'm going to come back to that, if I may. I'll give you plenty of time to talk about while you're in Kingston. But while we're still talking about the popularity of the Prime Minister, there was a weekend poll which was released ahead of the Wakefield by-election, and that's just in a couple of weeks' time, isn't it? I don't know if you've seen it, but it makes very, very, very unhappy reading for the Prime Minister this morning.
Look, I saw that poll, and there were particular circumstances of the resignation of the former MP in Wakefield, and frankly, I'm not surprised by what I saw and what I read some of the detail around that poll. But the only poll that's going to matter is the one on the 23rd of June, both for Wakefield and also Tiverton and Horrington. I was in Tiverton and Horrington on Saturday with Helen Herford, our fantastic candidate there, and certainly on the doors that I knocked on, there was lots of support, especially because they were chatting to me as the Health Secretary around our vaccination programme, which has been world-leading, the record investment that we're making in the NHS, the record increases in the NHS workforce, the adult social care plans came up and how we're tackling those. For the first time, we have a Prime Minister who's willing to tackle that. So, let's see what happens on the 23rd of June.
To fight elections, you need money. Lord Michael Tory has said he'll refuse to make further donations unless Boris Johnson is removed from office.
Look, he's entitled to his view, and every political party has its donors, and I'm confident. I speak to donors or potential donors to the Conservative Party many times, and I know that many of them are fully behind the Prime Minister and our programme for delivery. That's what motivates them. What people look at, whether they're donors or ordinary people, what they look at is delivery. I'm standing here right now, as I say, in this hospital that's getting record investment. Our economy as well. We have the lowest unemployment rate in almost 50 years. And of course, we've got challenges, especially cost of living challenges, the COVID backlogs. But this is a government that's getting on with the job. And that's what I think people expect politicians to focus on.
A memo circulating over the weekend calling the Prime Minister the Conservative Corbyn. What do you make of that?
Well, this Prime Minister is the one that saved the country from Corbynism. If you look back at that 2019 election, there was a very real prospect that Labour under Jeremy Corbyn could have won. Instead, this Prime Minister delivered the biggest majority that the Conservatives have seen since Margaret Thatcher's time and used that majority to deliver for this country. You're delivering on Brexit, getting on with dealing with the pandemic. Look, did we get every decision right? The Prime Minister has been very honest about this, especially when it came to the pandemic. We didn't get every decision right. No leader in the world was able to deal with the global pandemic and get every decision right, but we got the big decisions right. And now in the aftermath of this pandemic, again, as the Health and Social Care Secretary, I'm very focused on both of those. Getting our health system back up and running, back to normal, dealing with those backlogs, but also on adult social care, delivering with a reform plan for the first time, putting in extra billions, but also leading to better integration between health and social care. That's what people want us. That's just the kind of thing they want us to focus on.
Yeah, but if he's so fabulous, this Prime Minister, why is he about to face a vote of no confidence?
As I say, whether there's a vote of confidence or not, that's a decision for my colleagues. And no Prime Minister, no leader of the Conservative Party, as far as I'm aware of, has enjoyed 100% support of colleagues. We're a democratic party. We're actually the most successful democratic party in the Western world. And part of that strength comes from having differences of opinion at sometimes. And we have processes. So, if this threshold of 54 letters is reached, there will be a confidence vote. And in that case, of course, there should be. There may well be one. If there is, the Prime Minister will fight and stand his corner with a very, very strong case. So let's just wait and see what happens.
Tell me about the scanner.
Well, this is, as I say, this is Kingston Hospital I'm at today. This is a brand new CT scanner. I think the third one in this particular hospital is part of our plan to invest billions in dealing with those COVID backlogs. We've opened up, since the pandemic, some 90 what we call the community diagnostic centres. These are the new one-stop shops for scans and tests and checkups in the most convenient of locations. We're going to have 160 of these in total over the next couple of years, and together they will deliver some 9 million more tests and scans and checkups, freeing up NHS capacity. This is just one example of how we're trying to deal with the backlog. But also with the backlog itself, we're making some good progress, I think it's fair to say, on dealing with waiting times. Those waiting the longest, that number has been halved in the last 4 months, thanks to the plans that we've got, but thanks most of all to the efforts of all the staff that are working across the NHS. And I want to take this opportunity to thank them again for everything that they are doing, working day in, day out to deliver for patients across England.
The Royal College of Nursing says that on their last shift, 80% of nurses say that staffing levels were not sufficient to meet the needs of patients.
We do need more nurses, and that is why we set out a plan at that last election of 50,000 more nurses. We've got 30,000 already just in the last year, despite the pandemic and the challenges. I think in the last year we've added 2,400 more nurses, and by the way, we've also added over 4,000 doctors. So we are increasing the NHS workforce. It is challenging. We need more doctors and nurses, and we are recruiting at the highest levels ever. We've got more people working in the NHS than ever before, and we've got more nurses in training, doctors in training than ever before. We're pulling every lever to get the workforce that we need.
OK. What was your favourite moment of the Jubilee celebrations? If you don't say the Queen on the balcony, Paddington Bear or Prince Louis, then you're never coming back.
My favourite moment actually was Paddington Bear.
There you go.
I couldn't believe it, and nor could my kids. My family, I couldn't believe it, but it just sort of goes to show you that, you know, just how amazing our Queen is, that she was able to surprise us, including, as I understand it, her own family, with that what I thought was just a magical moment that will live with us forever.
Yeah, we're out of time, but we just want to show this to our viewers, which you shared on your Instagram feed. This was you at the Silver Jubilee in 1977, like it was yesterday, eh?
Yeah, I love that picture. I was in two minds whether I should tweet it out or not. I showed it to my wife, and she said, "Look, get it out there. You haven't changed." And I think many of us will probably have moments like that, especially if you were lucky to be alive in 1977 and see the Silver Jubilee as well. And to think now, you know, so many years on, our Queen is still there and has achieved so much more.
OK, great to talk to you. Thanks for joining us, Health Secretary.
Thank you.
Time now for a look at the morning's papers, with the Queen's Platinum Jubilee making many of the front pages. The Telegraph quotes from the Queen's statement of thanks at the conclusion of her Jubilee weekend, saying, "While I may not have attended every event in person, my heart has been with you all." The Mirror echoes those words as well, and the Mail goes with an almost identical headline. And the Express too makes those words from Her Majesty its top story. With a slight tweak to the spelling, the Metro calls the event magical. The Times says the message from the palace balcony was the future of the monarchy. And the Sun sums it up with, "Thank you, ma'am." Still to come on the programme for you this morning, delays, queues and confusion. We'll take a look at what's happening at our airports with the Independent's travel editor, Simon Calder. Going over the most memorable moments from the Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebrations with Tessa Dunlop. Just after 8, joined by Labour's Shadow Health Secretary Wes Streeting. Before that, the Defence Secretary Ben Wallace has announced that the UK will give Ukraine missile systems capable of precision strikes 50 miles away. Russian President Vladimir Putin had warned that Russia would expand its range of targets if Ukraine was supplied with longer-range missiles. Alistair standing by for us in Dnipro in central Ukraine. So what does all this mean then, Alistair? Good morning.
Morning, Kay. Well, this is being done in coordination with the Americans. It was at the request of the Ukrainians, who believe they desperately need these new missile systems in order to strike Russian supply lines, but also long-range Russian artillery deep into Russian-held Ukrainian territory. And so after some deliberating over it, the White House agreed to send these systems, and then this morning the British have announced that they will follow suit too. The idea is it won't be a game changer. You know, they are precision strike. They are supposed to be very, very accurate. It's not suddenly going to win the war for the Ukrainians, but what they hope it will do, if they use it correctly, is swing the momentum back in their favour, and they help push the Russians back from the positions they're in at the moment. I think they clearly have the Russians slightly rattled, because over the last week or so, as rumours that these missiles would be coming to Ukraine, you've heard a few announcements from the Kremlin threatening to target areas, possibly even within Europe itself, if these missile systems were sent here. And Vladimir Putin himself yesterday said they would look at new targets to strike if so. Apparently the Americans have sought a promise from the Ukrainians that they won't be used to hit targets inside Russia itself, and I think the British will have extracted similar guarantees. But what it shows to me is the continued sort of level of investment that London and Washington still have in this conflict that is grinding on and on.
Ракеты тогда нужны. Да, но если они будут поставляться, из этого мы будем делать соответствующие выводы, применять свои средства поражения, которых у нас достаточно, для того, чтобы наносить удары по тем объектам, по которым мы пока не наносим.
Well, there you have that Vladimir Putin interview clip that I referenced, where he was talking about the missiles and what Russia's reaction might be. Actually, it's worth noting that on Saturday night into the early hours of Sunday morning, some Russian missiles hit the capital, Kyiv, for the first time since April. So that might be an indication of the Russian response to this move, that they start to strike elsewhere in Ukraine, particularly the capital.
OK, for now, thank you. An investigation has been launched into the death of a man who jumped into the River Thames after being tasered by the police. Saba is standing by for us at Chelsea Bridge, where the incident took place in central London. Hi, Saba, tell us what happened.
Morning, Kay. Well, officers were called here to Chelsea Bridge in West London on Saturday morning after receiving reports that a man was wielding a screwdriver and acting in a threatening manner. Police then went on to taser the individual, and shortly afterwards he jumped off of Chelsea Bridge and was rescued by the Royal National Lifeboat Institute. He was found in a critical condition and was shortly later taken to hospital, where he died the following day. Now, an independent investigation has been called by a police watchdog, and police body cam footage has been obtained as a part of that investigation. Now, we don't yet know a huge amount of information about this. Police are yet to reveal more details. For example, we don't yet know the individual's name, but what we do know is that the man's family have been informed.
OK, thank you. Looking at some of today's other headlines for you now. And disruption at airports has continued to affect thousands of passengers. EasyJet cancelled 80 flights on Sunday, as the total number of cancellations for the weekend came close to 200. There were also issues on Eurostar, and traffic built up on the roads as the Platinum Jubilee celebrations and half-term came to an end. Commuters are being advised not to use the London Underground today because of a strike by transport workers. Members of the RMT union are walking out for 24 hours in a row over jobs and pensions. Some lines will run, but severe disruption is expected across the network until 8 a.m. tomorrow. More than half of nurses have said that staffing levels on their last shift were not sufficient to meet the needs of patients. A survey by the Royal College of Nursing of more than 20,000 frontline staff suggested some are being driven out of the job by shortages. Now to what striker Gareth Bale has described as the greatest result in the history of Welsh football. Goodness. Wales are heading to their first World Cup since 1958 after a 1-0 victory over Ukraine in last night's playoff in Cardiff. For some fans, it was simply unbelievable.
It was the year I was born, and this year we are going to the World Cup.
We're going to Qatar, aren't we, boys?
Yeah, come on.
Come on, Wales.
Like certain parts in the match, it was difficult to sit and watch, but oh my God, it was tense, but absolutely unbelievable.
I feel a bit sorry for the Ukrainians, mind, but that's a game of football, isn't it?
We live here for 2 months, and we feel so much support here, so we decided that in Championship we will be fans of Wales.
Not sure how far that's going to get you. Dan is standing by for us this morning. I didn't mean that, Dan, obviously being a little bit provocative this Monday morning. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant for Wales.
It was brilliant. You really can't underestimate just how electric the atmosphere was here, despite it being incredibly soggy last night. You've got to go back to 1958, nearly 64 years since Wales last made the World Cup. That was against Brazil, and a young player called Pelé, at the age of just 17, scored the winner to knock out Wales back then. That's how far you've got to go back. The older gentleman you saw in those voices, Brian, who we spoke to at the gates here yesterday, he actually was at the qualifier back in 1958. And this is the first game he's been to see Wales since then. So he will hopefully be going to Qatar in November.
Good luck, Wales. Now, the Queen has said she was humbled and deeply touched by celebrations for her Platinum Jubilee. She thrilled thousands of well-wishers by appearing on the balcony of Buckingham Palace as the extended bank holiday weekend came to a close, surrounded by her son, her grandson and her great-grandchildren. The Queen's appearance came at the conclusion of the Jubilee pageant. A cast of 6,000 performers and an array of stars from Cliff Richard to Basil Brush took part in the procession through central London. The parade told the story of the Queen's reign in a way that was colourful, loud, sometimes eccentric, but always lots and lots of fun. In a thank you to the nation, the Queen said afterwards, "While I may not have attended every event in person, my heart has been with you all, and I remain committed to serving you to the best of my ability, supported by my family." She went on, "I've been inspired by the kindness, joy and kinship that has been so evident in recent days, and I hope this renewed sense of togetherness will be felt for many years to come. I thank you most sincerely for your good wishes and for the part that you have all played in these happy celebrations." Well, some of the most memorable moments of the 4-day celebration were very carefully prepared, others completely unplanned, not least, that's amazing, isn't it? Not least images of 4-year-old Louis pulling faces on the balcony of Buckingham Palace. There he is. He didn't like the noise at all, did he? That was for the fly past when he was in the royal box. As my mum would say, he had it on him. But he did sit on Grandad's knee later on, and then all calm was restored. I bet you've got a favourite picture, haven't you, of what Prince Louis was up to? Or indeed, was there another favourite moment for you, sharing sweeties? Lovely. That kept him quiet for like a second. Tweet me at Burley with your favourite moments from the weekend. So the Health Secretary says it's possible a vote of confidence in Boris Johnson's leadership could take place. Speaking to this programme, he did say that the Prime Minister is focused on getting on with the job, but that if a vote does take place, he will fight his corner. I asked him whether he expected the numbers needed for a vote to be reached.
I don't know. That's the honest answer. No one knows at this point, apart from Sir Graham Brady, my colleague, who is the chair of what's called the 1922 committee. We know that a number of colleagues are already gone public with asking for such a vote. That's a decision, of course, for them. If 54 letters are reached, I'm sure a vote will be called. I do think it's possible, but I don't know. I think this country doesn't need a vote of confidence in the Prime Minister. I think what we need to be doing as a country is certainly looking ahead to the challenges that exist. No Prime Minister, no leader of the Conservative Party, as far as I'm aware of, has enjoyed 100% support of colleagues. We're a democratic party. We're actually the most successful democratic party in the Western world, and what part of that strength comes from having differences of opinion at some times, and we have processes. So if this threshold of 54 letters is reached, there will be a confidence vote, and in that case, of course, there may well be one. If there is, the Prime Minister will fight and stand his corner with a very, very strong case. So let's just wait and see what happens.
Yes, let's. Tamara's in Downing Street for us. Hi, Tamara. Where are you? There she is. There she is. Hi, Tamara.
Day in politics.
Yeah. Goodness me, it's looking increasingly likely, isn't it?
Very much so. All the indications are that we can expect a statement this morning that the threshold of 54 letters has been reached. Of course, anything can happen in the next hour or two. MPs can withdraw their letters, but all the indications are that we are expecting a statement this morning, and therefore there will be a leadership challenge to the Prime Minister and a vote of confidence in his leadership. Tory MPs vote whether they want to keep him or whether they'd like to throw the cards in the air and have a different leader instead. Downing Street officials behind me are braced for that outcome, and the way it's been put to me by a senior person in number 10 is, if it's forced upon us, we want to dismiss it as soon as possible. Boris Johnson there over the weekend at the Jubilee, getting booed by members of the public. I think that has really crystallised the issue for some Conservative MPs. Like some I spoke to last night were saying that at Jubilee street parties, they had people coming up to them saying it's time to change the Prime Minister. But of course, the key question is, do they have the numbers? You need 15% of MPs to have the challenge, but then you need 180 to unseat the Prime Minister. That is a much higher bar, and at the moment you heard Sajid Javid there saying the Prime Minister is going to fight his corner. That is very much the attitude in the building behind me. They say this is a chance to draw a line under it and end the speculation, and they very much hope that the Prime Minister will win and therefore be safe from challenge for another year and get on with his agenda. But of course, Prime Ministers who face leadership challenges can be very wounded afterwards. So this is a moment of extreme danger for Boris Johnson. There was a document circulating among rebels over the weekend suggesting he'd become the Conservative Corbyn, that all the government's efforts had now been put into trying to defend him since the Partygate allegations and then the Sue Gray report came out. So really crunch time, we expect, for Conservative MPs and a very important day for the Prime Minister.
It certainly is. If there was an announcement tomorrow, what would it look like? Will we see Sir Graham Brady, the chairman of the 1922 committee, basically the backbench MP shop steward? Will he be in vision in front of camera, or will it just percolate through to us?
I would expect so, Kay. I would expect that we would see Graham Brady somewhere in Westminster giving a statement to camera. Timings are fluid, but we would expect him to say something today. And of course, he will have told Downing Street if the threshold had been met, and then he would liaise with them about when they would want to have the vote. I remember very well the morning that we heard that Theresa May was facing a challenge, December 2018. Downing Street immediately made clear they wanted the vote that night. And so whether Boris Johnson's Downing Street will want to have it that quickly or whether they'll want to wait a couple of days, we'll have to see. But those discussions would take place between Graham Brady and Downing Street as to when the vote would happen. And then I'm sure there would be an operation of Boris Johnson's allies calling Conservative MPs. We're already seeing a bit of that already, to say, look, this is not the time to look inwardly. This is the time to get on with our agenda. We will get past this difficult period, and we'll see whether any of them can be swayed.
Social media going absolutely bonkers at the suggestions that it is going to be this morning. If it was to be this morning, is there a specific time that Sir Graham Brady would tell us, or is it when he's finished counting the number of letters twice?
Well, if the threshold of letters had been met, for example, last week, we may not hear about it until today. There are no published rules for Conservative leadership elections. Graham Brady decides when to open the letters and when to inform Number 10. So if there is going to be an announcement this morning, and the rebels are pretty sure that there is, then we would expect he will have already made that clear to Downing Street and had the conversations already about when they would like to have this vote of Conservative MPs. So it could all be happening very quickly. We will expect an announcement from him in person in some form if that does happen.
I've got lots more questions. Let me ask you some more questions, if I may. So if Graham Brady does make the announcement, will we also know at the same time whether because he'll tell the Prime Minister first, I'm guessing, before he tells us, will we also know at the same time whether the vote of confidence will be this evening, or will that be an announcement that comes from Downing Street?
I'm not sure whether he will announce when the vote will happen. I remember that with Theresa May, for example, it was made clear shortly. So there was a press release saying that there had been a leadership challenge, and then it was made clear shortly afterwards, I think by sources in government, but if I recall correctly, that they wanted to hold the vote that evening. So he may say that has been the nature of his discussions with Downing Street, or they may tell us. we're yet to find that one out, but certainly Graham Brady, must be said, won't tell us how many letters are in. He won't say whether it was 54 or 104, but we'll just know that the threshold has been met, and then really all bets are off as to how it might go. I think what is really interesting about this one, Kay, is you remember 4 years ago, Theresa May's critics were trying to effect a specific outcome. They didn't like her Brexit deal. They wanted to get rid of her and get someone who would do what they wanted on Brexit. This time it's very different. You've got...
Tamara,
yes.
Can I just interrupt you for a second, and then you can continue that thought? We're hearing, according to the Reuters news agency, that Jesse Norman, who was previously a financial secretary to the Treasury, he has now also put in a letter to Graham Brady to say that he has no faith in the Prime Minister.
We can confirm that. I have just seen Jesse Norman's tweet to that effect, and he is, interestingly, Kay, critical of the Rwanda policy, which he calls ugly, likely to be counterproductive, and of doubtful legality. And that is that really plays into what I was just saying about these critics coming from all sides. There are people who think that what Boris Johnson is doing with the windfall tax is unconservative. There are critics from the right, like Andrea Leadsom, a leading Brexiteer. And then you've got MPs like Jessie Norman who say what we're doing on immigration is too hard line, whereas you'll have MPs in red wall seats who will love what they're doing on immigration but feel concerned about Partygate, for example. So that is why this rebellion, which has been really building over the last 10 days or so, has been so dangerous, because it has been coming from everywhere, and it will be really difficult for Boris Johnson to satisfy or to call around and say, look, I'll do this for you and I'll do this for you. These MPs all want very different things, and there's really no sense of who might win a leadership contest. These MPs are throwing their cards in the air, not knowing who might take over if Boris Johnson is indeed unseated, and that is why this is such a dangerous predicament for the Prime Minister at the moment.
OK, carry on with your thought about Theresa May, because we're going to get that tweet up for our viewers in just a second.
Indeed, with Theresa May, it was a group of Brexiteers, the European Research Group, led by Steve Baker, who were trying to unseat her in order to get rid of her Brexit deal, the Chequers deal, and have a more hard-line version of Brexit. And so she won the vote because a lot of Conservative MPs didn't want that, whereas this time you've got MPs who were just disenchanted with the leader, with Boris Johnson himself, with his unpopularity, with the fact that they're having to go out and defend Partygate, which really doesn't seem to be going away, and especially the trust issues that stem from it. So I think this is, in a way, more dangerous. And, you know, if it comes to a vote happening, which we do increasingly expect at the moment, I think all bets are off as to whether the Prime Minister would indeed win that. I mean, they're pretty confident behind me that there are a lot of MPs who don't want to spend the next few months embroiled in a leadership challenge, feel that there are no obvious other contenders. Downing Street have also been telling people there's no alternative vision. What do you want the next leader to do that Boris Johnson isn't doing? But the concerning thing for them is it's getting to the stage where a lot of Conservatives are just prepared to really throw their lot in with whoever would win such a contest. So it looks increasingly like we're going to have a very interesting morning, Kay, when and if that announcement is made.
Tomorrow, let's run through this, because it's pretty damning, actually, this letter, as I'm looking at it. So perhaps we could go through it together.
Absolutely.
He says, I'm afraid I can see no circumstances in which I could serve in a government led by you. Oof. First, as Sue Gray's report underlines, you have presided over a culture of casual law-breaking at 10 Downing Street in relation to COVID. To describe yourself as vindicated by the report is grotesque. Secondly, both in the Queen's speech and elsewhere, your current policy priorities are deeply questionable. Breach of the Northern Ireland Protocol would be economically very damaging, politically foolhardy, and almost certainly illegal. Oof, goodness me. He goes on to talk about Rwanda. The policy in Rwanda is ugly. No genuinely conservative government should have supported the recent ban on noisy protest, least of all when basic human freedoms are facing the threat of extinction in Ukraine. On it goes.
I mean, I've covered politics for 10 years, Kay, and I don't think I've ever read anything quite like this. I mean, this is really excoriating from, former Treasury Minister Jessie Norman saying that he cannot support the Prime Minister on pretty much every single count, but of course, most damningly on his personal integrity. And, it really speaks for himself. Obviously, we don't know how many other MPs share his views, but certainly it really does show what a mountain the Prime Minister would have to climb to try and talk down some of these people who want to vote against him as leader. You've got MPs who can't stand the Rwanda policy. You've got MPs who have got concerns about the direction he's going in on the economy. And this is why it's going to be so difficult to dampen down such a rebellion. Must be said, the view in the building behind me is if they even win by a small amount. Remember, Theresa May got 2/3 of MPs voting for her in the no confidence vote in the end, but she was gone 6 months later. So in the building behind me, they are concentrating on just winning such a vote. But of course, once, even if Boris Johnson were to win, were to get enough support, you've got critics like this having made these statements saying they don't like what's referred to as the culture war, these dividing lines, and that is really going to make it very difficult for him to carry on, even if he does win the vote.
OK, so where are we on the numbers tomorrow?
So we need 54, that's 15% of Conservative MPs for the leadership challenge. The Rebels are very confident that they have met that threshold or indeed exceeded it. Then you'd need 180, a majority, to unseat the Prime Minister. We've been doing a spreadsheet of who's put in a letter, and those MPs who have said the Prime Minister should resign are around 28, but those who have made criticisms of Boris Johnson, which sound pretty damning, are at over 40. But those numbers only tell us part of the story, because I know of Conservative MPs who have put letters in, who have never said anything, have never published a statement on their website, and there are some on that list who have been critical but not actually put a letter in. So what is really important is how many letters have gone into Graham Brady, which are secret, which he reads secretly, and it's important to say that the no confidence vote is also a secret ballot. So you may get members of the cabinet going on television supporting the Prime Minister, who will then go and secretly vote against him in the leadership vote. That is why it is so dangerous. It's just been pointed out to me, Kay, and I wanted to mention that, you know, the Prime Minister goes on a lot about the vaccine rollout. Well, Kate Bingham, who of course led the vaccine task force, is the wife of Jessie Norman, the Treasury Minister. So that gives an interesting perspective on it.
It certainly does. Now, the ball started rolling. Probably one of the most high-profile people tomorrow would have been, oh, I don't know, would we say maybe Tobias Ellwood?
Tobias Ellwood has certainly been one of the Prime Minister's most vocal critics and has been calling for him to go for some time now. He has, said to us in the last few days that the support he was getting behind the scenes, he was a lone voice for a long time saying the Prime Minister should go, that his integrity was putting the whole Conservative Party's project at risk. He was saying to us that he was getting quite a lot of support behind the scenes, even from ministers, and it sounds like that may be borne out, or we'll see how it bears out in the next couple of hours if this vote is called, and of course what the result is. But certainly he has been one of those who put his head above the parapet when others didn't want to, and it will be interesting to see how much opinion has crystallised over the weekend, because I've spoken to Tory MPs who were at Jubilee street parties with die-hard Conservative members with Union Jack cakes they'd baked, saying it's time to change Prime Minister. That is something that will send shivers down the spine of Conservatives in marginal seats and not so marginal ones. So that is where we are, and Sajid Javid, the Health Secretary, was pretty resigned, I thought, to a challenge happening. He just said that the Prime Minister would try to fight it. This is what the Health Secretary told us in the last hour.
I thought it was absolutely fantastic, and especially yesterday, the Queen on the balcony and having all those people out there to welcome her. She should have rightly felt very proud about that moment, and I think that just in the way the whole country feels proud about our Queen and how she served us in such an amazing way for 70 years.
How did you feel about the Prime Minister being booed?
Well, look, I saw the clips of that afterwards. There were boos, there were cheers, but look, no politician is universally loved. It won't be the first time a politician is booed, and there'll be much of that for many politicians down the line. I think that people are perfectly entitled to their views, but what's more important is to have a Prime Minister that's getting on with the job, that's delivering for the country, and that's exactly what we have.
54 letters needed to trigger a confidence vote in him. Are you expecting that threshold to be reached?
Look, I don't know. That's the honest answer. No one knows at this point, apart from Sir Graham Brady, my colleague, who is the chair of what's called the 1922 committee. We know that a number of colleagues are already gone public with asking for such a vote. That's a decision, of course, for them. If 54 letters are reached, I'm sure a vote will be called. I do think it's possible, but I don't know.
I was reading in The Guardian this morning a senior MP saying about the mood of the constituents, because, of course, a lot of MPs have been out and about in their constituencies given the 4-day bank holiday weekend for the Platinum Jubilee, saying, I'm getting people coming up to me and greeting me with that smile and that tilt of the head that's usually reserved when your Labrador puppy has just been run over. Goodness.
Look, I think this country doesn't need a vote of confidence in the Prime Minister. I think what we need to be doing as a country is certainly looking ahead to the challenges that exist. You know, I'm here today at Kingston Hospital, standing behind this brand new scanner, by the way.
I want to talk to you about that in just a second, but I just want to deal with Partygate, and then I'm going to come back to that, if I may. I'll give you plenty of time to talk about while you're in Kingston. But while we're still talking about the popularity of the Prime Minister, there was a weekend poll which was released ahead of the Wakefield by-election, and that's just in a couple of weeks' time, isn't it? I don't know if you've seen it, but it makes very, very, very unhappy reading for the Prime Minister this morning.
Look, I saw that poll, and there were particular circumstances of the resignation of the former MP in Wakefield, and frankly, I'm not surprised by what I saw and what I read some of the detail around that poll. But the only poll that's going to matter is the one on the 23rd of June, both for Wakefield and also Tiverton and Horrington. You know, I was in Tiverton and Horrington on Saturday with Helen Herford, our fantastic candidate there, and certainly on the doors that I knocked on, there was lots of support, especially because they were chatting to me as the health secretary around our vaccination program, which has been world leading, the record investment that we're making in the NHS, the record increases in the NHS workforce, the adult social care plans came up and how we're tackling those. For the first time, we have a Prime Minister who's willing to tackle that. So, you know, let's see what happens on the 23rd of June.
To fight elections, you need money. Lord Michael Tory has said he'll refuse to make further donations unless Boris Johnson is removed from office.
Look, he's entitled to his view, and every political party has its donors, and I'm confident. I speak to donors or potential donors to the Conservative Party many times, and I know that many of them are fully behind the Prime Minister and our programme for delivery. You know, that's what motivates them. What people look at, whether they're donors or ordinary people, what they look at is delivery. I'm standing here right now, as I say, in this hospital that's getting record investment. Our economy as well. We have the lowest unemployment rate in almost 50 years. And of course, we've got challenges, especially cost of living challenges, the COVID backlogs. But this is a government that's getting on with the job. And that's what I think people expect politicians to focus on.
A memo circulating over the weekend calling the Prime Minister the Conservative Corbyn. What do you make of that?
Well, this Prime Minister is the one that saved the country from Corbynism. You know, if you look back at that 2019 election, there was a very real prospect that Labour under Jeremy Corbyn could have won. Instead, this Prime Minister delivered the biggest majority that the Conservatives have seen since Margaret Thatcher's time, and used that majority to deliver for this country. You're delivering on Brexit, getting on with dealing with the pandemic. Look, did we get every decision right? The Prime Minister has been very honest about this, especially when it came to the pandemic. We didn't get every decision right. No leader in the world was able to deal with the global pandemic and get every decision right, but we got the big decisions right. And now in the aftermath of this pandemic, again, as the Health and Social Care Secretary, I'm very focused on both of those. You're getting our health system back up and running, back to normal, dealing with those backlogs, but also on adult social care, delivering with a reform plan for the first time, putting in extra billions, but also leading to better integration between health and social care. That's what people want us, that's just the kind of thing they want us to focus on.
Yeah, but it'd be so fun.
Here in Downing Street, the Prime Minister is braced for an imminent challenge to his leadership. Rebel Conservative MPs are increasingly confident that they have met the threshold of 54 to trigger a vote of confidence in the Prime Minister, and we are expecting that an announcement could be made as soon as the next couple of hours, with Downing Street telling me that if it is forced upon them, they will want to dismiss it as soon as possible by holding that vote as quickly as they can. Of course, half of Conservative MPs, that's 180, would have to vote against the Prime Minister in order to unseat him. But we are now seeing rebels coming from all directions in the party, with the latest former Minister Jessie Norman saying that the Prime Minister's behaviour around Partygate had been grotesque. This is a moment of immense danger for the Prime Minister as he faces challenges from all sides and could be out of a job if that vote of confidence in his leadership succeeds in ousting him. Booed, of course, at St Paul's Cathedral over the weekend. Does that reflect more widespread opinion in the Conservative Party? We will find that out pretty soon, it looks like, with an announcement expected as soon as this morning by Graham Brady, the chair of Conservative backbenchers, expected as soon as this morning.